I'm Haley Taylor, and you're listening to the Rough Draft Diaries. This week on the Rough Draft Diaries, we're talking about water.
My name is Marilyn DuFour, and I work as a senior environmental specialist at the Toledo Division of Environmental Services. My job is actually to monitor industrial wastewater to make sure that there are no pollutants in it which could damage our wastewater treatment plant or pass through to the Maumee River.
Marilyn's job focuses on two areas of water pollution. Pollution where the source can be specifically pinpointed, and pollution where it's harder to tell.
My primary job, as I said, was to deal with what's called the Industrial Pretreatment Program. That was meant to deal with what we call point sources of pollution. Those are the ones that we know exactly where the pollutants are entering. And early on, we know a lot of our water quality issues were caused by discharges from industry. The other piece that I kind of get to do on the side is to teach about non-point source pollution. That is the water that runs off after a rain and picks up with it all kinds of pollutants, contaminants like pet waste and oil and pesticides and sediments and grass clippings, if you can believe that, all of which are causing problems in our Great Lakes.
So Maryland is able to monitor point source pollution through the Clean Water Act of 1972. These amendments made it unlawful for any person to discharge any pollutant from a point source into navigable waters unless a permit was obtained. But monitoring non-point source pollution is a little harder because it isn't coming from, let's say, a specific company or from a specific source. It's coming from many neighborhoods and many households that are unaware they are contributing to water pollution. So what does Maryland do to combat this issue? Well, first, education is key. People need to know if they're using the right tools. Once the public becomes aware, then they can partake in the initiatives.
One is the Rain Garden Initiative of Toledo-Lucas County. What we try to do in that initiative is we try to engage people in gardening for water quality. And what people are being asked to do is, instead of just gardening in a raised bed, make a shallow depression in your yard that will collect water from your downspouts or parking lots or driveways or streets, and collect that water and then plant it with deep-rooted native plants that can help not only absorb that water but also filter it and clean out some of the contaminants. So it came about as a way of using gardening to discuss this broader issue of the stormwater management and the contamination of our waterways by runoff.
Maryland believes the Rain Garden Initiative has seen a positive response with the public, but that doesn't mean everything has been smooth sailing. Maryland still runs into issues when implementing a new initiative to a public that might not have a lot of time or resources.
Well, I think the interest is really growing. The thing that we're working hardest on, I think, is trying to create a market for these plants. It'll be a lot easier to get them because that's one of the hurdles, I think, that people come up against when they get all jazzed about it. They can't find them easily. And so the more people we have who are willing to grow and sell those in one place so people can just go and buy them, the better off we're going to be, and also establishing networks by which we can share them because they're perennials. So, we all have to thin our perennials. So there's a lot of sharing that can going on, and our local Wild Ones chapter has really made that a reality.
But public interest is not the only thing Maryland has to worry about. Time magazine just recently released an article about how the Trump administration is planning to rescind a 2015 regulation that defines which waterways are covered under the Clean Water Act. This could potentially withdraw clean water protections for half of America's streams. This, of course, goes against everything Maryland's job stands for.
I know, how important the Clean Water Act is to the water quality that we enjoy, that it's just fundamental to that. But because it's kind of invisible, I don't think everybody understands how critical that still is.
Regardless of the obstacles Maryland confronts, she believes it's time to stop finger-pointing blame, but instead to accept that we all need to work together to protect the water.
Well, as you know, water in this area is a big part of our way of life. We're so gifted to be able to turn on that tap and not worry so much about how much water we might need or use because it's plentiful here, but it isn't plentiful everywhere. We still have a responsibility to use it wisely. It not only gives us this fundamental thing that we need to survive, but it also gives us recreation and spiritual feeding. It gives us so much. So that, I guess, is why we need to put aside the blame pointing. That seems to be the biggest thing that we need to overcome, because to preserve that way of life, to preserve the water that we all depend on, we have to all accept that we're all contributors, and we all have to do our part to make sure that the Great Lakes are preserved, especially our western basin of Lake Erie.
For now, I'm Haley Taylor, and you've been listening to the Rough Draft Diaries. Marilyn's choices for the next episode of the Rough Draft Diaries include...
Well, I would recommend Crystal Taylor. Jamie Kokensparger is the education specialist at Lucas Soil and Water Conservation District. And then Chris Patterson.
You'll have to tune in next time to find out who I pick on the Rough Draft Diaries.